Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving into a tool that completely revolutionized how Java developers work with databases, Hibernate. It's all about building a bridge between two very, very different worlds. So let's kick things off with a problem that, pretty much every developer has run into. You spend all this time crafting these beautiful, intricate objects in your code, right? But then, your database, it just wants to talk in simple rows and columns. It's like a total communication breakdown. And this feeling, this disconnect, it's not just in your head. It actually has a name, and it's the exact problem Hibernate was born to solve. It's called the Object-Relational Impedance Mismatch. I know, it's a mouthful. But really, just think of it like trying to cram a square peg into a round hole. Object-oriented programming and relational databases simply do not see the world or your data in the same way at all. And this slide just lays it all out perfectly. Over on the left, you've got your rich, dynamic world of Java. You've got complex objects, inheritance, collections like lists and sets. But on the right, the database world is all about flat tables, super rigid rows and columns connected by foreign keys. So the big question is, how on earth do you translate between the two without writing just mountains of messy, bug-prone code? Well, how do you get these two very different worlds to talk to each other? You build a bridge. Or even better, you use an amazing one that's already been built and perfected over years. And that's exactly where Hibernate comes in. It's what we call an object-relational mapping, or ORM tool. And its entire reason for existing is to be that powerful, automated translator that handles all the messy conversion work so you don't have to. Their mission is just perfectly captured in their motto. The whole goal is to let developers work with a database in a way that feels natural, or idiomatic, to Java. You get to stay in your object-oriented mindset without constantly having to switch gears back to SQL. Okay, so it's a translator. But how does this magic actually happen under the hood? It really all boils down to two main jobs. First, you have to tell Hibernate how your Java objects connect to your database tables. That's the mapping part. And then second, you just let Hibernate handle the actual conversation with the database. That's the querying. And the process is actually incredibly simple. You start by writing your regular Java classes, what are often called POJOs for plain old Java objects. Then you just add a little bit of metadata, usually as annotations right there in your code. They act like little labels, basically telling Hibernate, hey, this class here, it maps to that table over there, and this field, that's for this column. Once you do that, that's it. Hibernate takes the wheel and generates all the tedious SQL for you. Now, for getting data out of the database, Hibernate gives you its own language called HQL, and it's often described with this really powerful phrase. HQL is, and I'm not exaggerating, a total game changer. Instead of thinking about tables and columns, you get to think about your objects. So for example, instead of writing SQL that says select first name from user table, you write HQL that looks like select u.firstname from user u. You see that difference? You're querying your Java user object, not some database table. And the real magic is that Hibernate then translates that into the perfect SQL for whatever database you're using, PostgreSQL, MySQL, whatever. Your code becomes incredibly portable. So using a tool like this gives you some massive advantages that go way beyond just not having to write SQL. Let's dig into some of the biggest ones. The benefits are just huge, and they cover the whole spectrum. We're talking about a massive jump in developer productivity because you're writing so much less boilerplate code. Then you've got tunable performance, and we'll see in a sec, ORM is not always slower. Of course, you get the scalability and robustness that you need for serious applications. And last but not least, something that is so important, developer joy. When you free developers from boring, repetitive tasks, they can focus on what they love, solving real business problems. Now, this slide is really interesting, especially the performance part. A lot of people just assume that writing code by hand is always going to be faster, but Hibernate comes packed with sophisticated features like a multi-level cache and really smart data fetching strategies. This means you can often get even better performance, and this is the key, you can tune and optimize it after the code is written, without having to tear everything apart. And this shift from complexity to simplicity really gets to that heart of developer joy. You have to remember, early enterprise Java was infamous for these massive, nightmarish XML configuration files. Hibernate was a champion of moving to simple annotations right in your code. It might sound like a small thing, but it radically simplified development and just made the whole experience so much cleaner. So with all this innovation, it's really no surprise that Hibernate has had this huge, lasting impact, not just on the world of Java, but really on the entire software industry. I mean, just look at its history. It was created way back in 2001 by Gavin King, basically as a rebellion against the super heavyweight standards of the time, specifically something called EJB2 entity beans, which were just a nightmare of boilerplate code. Hibernate was this lightweight, powerful alternative. And it hasn't just been sitting around since then. It has constantly evolved to stay at the cutting edge of data persistence. And here it is. This is the ultimate proof of its success. Hibernate didn't just become a popular tool that people like to use. No, its ideas were so powerful and so influential that they became the foundation for the official industry standard for data persistence in Java. That standard is now called the Jakarta Persistence API, or JPA. And Hibernate is, of course, a certified implementation of the very standard it helped to create. It's an amazing story. And today, Hibernate is so much more than just an ORM tool. It's an entire ecosystem. You've got Hibernate Search to add full-text search to your database. You have Validator for making sure your data is clean. There's Nverse for easily auditing who changed what and when. There's even Hibernate OGM, which takes all these cool mapping ideas and applies them to modern NoSQL databases. It's really become a complete platform for working with data. So that leaves us with one final thought. Understanding that problem of the two worlds, the object world and the relational world, that's always the first step. And now, well, now you know about one of the most powerful, elegant, and time-tested bridges ever built to connect them.